Pranakasha live stream.
Hey folks, it's Matt from Pranakasha Productions, and today we're doing a double interview with Ethan McDowell and Bryan McClure, who I both met at the red carpet of Space Command, a beautiful, fantastic, positive sci-fi miniseries that Mark Zickrey is producing. And in fact, I was lucky enough to end up going out to lunch with these two guys and with Mark on the day of the red carpet. So we got to hang out eating Mexican food. And of course I had, what did I have? Tuna, raw tuna for the first time in my life.
Yeah.
But I ate it and it was actually pretty good. So anyway, that's how we know each other. So go ahead and introduce each other. Who gets to go first? I think maybe the captain should go first. That would be
Sure. Well, like Matt said, I'm Ethan McDowell, and I'm an actor, sometimes writer, producer, and director of very silly short films. But other than that, I'm married, have a dog, and that's me in a nutshell.
Wow. And we got Bryan. So Bryan, what are you up to? I heard we were just talking. You have a background in graphic design too, right?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, I got my degree in graphic design. So, in addition to acting, I also own a web and graphic design company. So.
Oh.
Yep.
Okay, so I didn't know that.
Whenever I'm not acting, you may find me doing some graphics. I've done plenty of posters for films and logos. I recently did a logo for a production company for a friend of mine, and a lot of actor announcement cards. Like I get hired to design stuff when actors book something and they want to announce it that it's coming out. I've cut demo reels for actors. So
all okay,
different things. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Wow. Okay. So I'm assuming you also did your own demo reel.
Yes, I did.
All right. We'll have to put a link to that in the description. So we'll get to see, that'll do a twofold purpose. It'll show how good you are at cutting demo reels, plus show how good you are as an actor.
Cool.
For the
Pressure's on. Pressure is on.
All right. So speaking of that stuff, so at the red carpet, I got this Space Command poster right there. So I don't suppose you were in on the design of this thing.
I wasn't. Otherwise, my face would be on it.
Oh yeah, that's the one drawback. We got Ethan right here.
Yep. Fresh hair gel.
Yeah.
Face ready.
I told my wife that Ethan's this really hunky superhero type of guy, so you're gonna have to watch this one.
Should I do a button here then? I don't know. What are we talking
Sure,
about?
that's okay. As long as there are not too many chest hairs, she doesn't like.
Okay.
She likes a more clean look.
Okay.
William Shatner type of Captain Kirk deal. And then Bryan was also on the bridge crew. So the name of the ship. Okay, so actually, let's get the poster again. The ship that they fly in, it's hard to see, but it's right here. It's sort of like those old Buck Rogers type of ships. It looks like a half rocket ship, half jet fighter type of a thing. And it's called the Paladin, right?
Yes, sir.
Right. Now, the only reason I know what a Paladin even is because when I was a kid, I played Dungeons and Dragons, and there was a certain type of character called a Paladin, which was like an ultra virtuous knight that was like so virtuous and so lawful good that they even had like magic powers. They could even heal people through the power of their goodness. So that's probably a reference to that, the name of that.
I mean, Mark's hit a lot of nuggets in a lot of the names and stuff in Space Command. So I wouldn't be surprised if he intentionally named it for that reason or something similar.
Yeah. That's cool. Well, how did Mark find you guys? How did you guys get involved in the show?
Well, so for both of us, it was Mark and his wife Elaine, who co-direct and co-produce and co-write all of Space Command, they had this crazy idea to do a gigantic worldwide talent search for anybody in the world to submit an audition tape if you're an actor and wanted a chance for 2 different roles in this upcoming. It was a film at the time that was going to be Space Command. I think just Space Command. I think, and was it always Space Command Redemption? I don't remember.
Yeah, I think it was originally just Space Command.
Yeah, but yeah, it was a worldwide talent search. So you pull down some just lines of dialogue. You pick 1 or 2 characters, and one is for Cadet Bradbury, who was could have been either male or female. Yeah. Could have been male or female. Could have submitted for that, and then for the captain, it was Captain Matt Kemmer.
Oh,
and
Matt.
It's actually Commander Kemmer, wasn't it, for that role?
Oh, Commander Kemmer. You're right. Yeah, it was. It was Commander Kemmer. Yeah, Matt Kemmer, Commander Matt Kemmer, and that was yeah. So it was it was a whole process of people just rolling the dice, putting a tape in, and crossing your fingers and hoping for the best.
Okay, and they picked you. So how many auditions did you have to do? Just that one, or did they come do some follow-up ones after that, or how did it work?
There was actually for the 2 different roles, there was about 7,000 email inquiries about the 2 different roles. And then I think by the time that all the submissions were sent, I think they got close to 2,000 or so, maybe just shy of 2,000 for the 2 different roles.
Wow.
And then they combed through all of those. And I think on their first pass, I think they narrowed it down to 500, and then they took it and passed through it again and narrowed it down to 20 for each of the 2 roles, to which then they brought us in for callbacks for callback auditions in person for those 2 roles. So it was a bit of a process.
And while it was going, it was up on an actual website, so you could watch and see if your tape is still in there. So you could go on this website and look, and you can see all the Cadet Bradburys who's in there, like all 300
Wow.
Commander Kemmers. And then it would slowly start to dwindle down, like what Bryan was saying. And then all of a sudden it just gets to a certain point. But like Bryan said, then Mark and Lynn would reach out and they say, well, all right, so for callbacks, I think they gave you different dialogue. Is that right, Bryan? I think they gave you, that's the monologue and a whole bunch of stuff. But
yeah, I remember specifically having, I think it was 2 scenes where I was acting with people, and then 1 scene that was like basically a 3-page monologue for the callback. And Ethan was actually in the room when I got to do my callback. So that was
Did you have to memorize it?
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole thing, every word.
No cue cards allowed.
No. You should have told me, Bryan. I could have held some cue cards up if you needed them. He didn't, though.
I didn't need it. I was ready.
To me, that's the scariest thing about acting, is having to memorize all the lines. That's the part where I thought that would be the hardest for me. It's like in my show, on my channel, well, this kind of stuff, obviously there's no script, but like when I do stuff with the script, I always have cue cards everywhere, and it's really funny because it's even the script that I wrote, I still need cue cards when I'm acting in it. So
they say that like memorizing lines is a muscle. So the more you do it, the better you'll be at memorizing.
Okay.
Yeah, and I feel that when you're doing your own stuff like that, Matt, it almost shifts gears because, you wrote it, but then all of a sudden you have to remember it because you're writing it, not thinking about remembering it. And then the fact that you have to remember it and then redo it is a whole different muscle in itself. So the fact that, there's no harm in having those cue cards there for you, man.
Yeah.
You're making it. That's your little thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's wild. So would you say, like, would this have been like a typical casting call? Is that usually how it works with other shows, or?
No, not really. No, I mean, it's a similar process, but this was more like normally I feel like, and Bryan, you might say something different or the same, but it feels like if you audition for something, you never hear, that's it. That's as far as it goes. Like whether you get it, all of a sudden you'll get a call, you may have to do a call back or just like you're put on availability for like an avail means that you're in the runnings for something, but that's as far as it goes. And all of a sudden you'll have the role and then you're off to the races. but most of the time when you do an audition, you just never hear anything. So the fact that you could physically watch it and see where you stand with a bunch of other people was kind of fun. So it's almost like an elimination, almost
like a sporting event or something.
Reality thing. Yeah, like a reality show.
And some of the things,
go for it.
Go ahead. I was just going to add to that, some of like the traditional casting process, if you're represented by an agent or a manager, is the casting director would actually post the breakdown of all the roles of the project they're casting that typically is only seen by the agents. And the agent would submit their talent for those roles, and then casting would select the actors that they want to see for a particular role. And then once they select those, the audition notices go out to the actors, who then either tape the audition or in some cases go in person. And then you might have the callback. And as Ethan mentioned, a veil or booking, maybe a network test if it's, a high profile role for a big project kind of thing. But with Space Command, because it was a talent search, it was just anybody without an agent anywhere could grab the audition materials offline, tape it themselves, and submit it to be viewed by Mark and Elaine. And as Ethan mentioned, there was the thing on the website, which at the time it was actually created because Mark did a Kickstarter campaign at the same time, where the backers of the Kickstarter campaign could actually vote on who their choices were. And that kind of played into it. They didn't get ultimate say in the roles, but it was definitely something that was considered in the weight of the roles. So
interesting. Did Mark say why he wanted to do it this way rather than the usual way?
Yeah, well, he kind of mentioned just in the idea that to give an opportunity for anybody to do it, but also I think it was so he could give people a chance, I would say. I don't know. What do you think, Brian?
I'd say there's truth to that, as well as from a producer mindset. I think it was a really smart thing for him to do, because he started with this Kickstarter campaign to raise money to create the project. And then at the same time, he launched a worldwide talent search, where then the project became something that everybody in the world could become aware of. So by doing those both at the same time, it helped spread the word of the project. And therefore people to help fund the Kickstarter campaign. And that the first Kickstarter campaign that we did was wildly successful. I think it got 141,000. Is that sound like the right number?
Yeah.
And that exceeded what we were trying to do in that first campaign by a significant amount. I can't remember what our original goal was, but it did exceed the amount by quite a bit. So it was pretty smart thinking from a producer's mindset to do them both at the same time.
Yeah, and for me, when I saw the casting breakdown, because there's certain websites you can go on that have possible roles and things, and this was on like a general breaking, or called a breakdown service, that if you have a project, you could list it up on this website, and shows all the roles and who's directing, who's producing, who's writing it. And then it talks about
Access?
Yeah, Actors Access, yeah.
I say that anybody that wants to get signed up, you can go to Actors Access and create your own profile. So
yeah, and it's free. I think it's free for like a general account to put a picture up and things like that, but it's kind of a standard thing for actors to have. I think you definitely should do it.
You can also do that on IMDb now.
Yeah.
I haven't yet, but I know that. Yeah. Have you done anything on there?
I haven't, no. But yeah, I know they have that option, yeah.
Yeah. Well, you guys are on, I'm pretty sure you're both on IMDb.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a feature that I don't know if we use it just because we have an agency that submits us for things. So
they probably do.
They need to submit for it. But yeah, I think for anybody starting out, it's definitely worth, you can meet people that have like-minded creativity and are
Actors Access. So Ethan, have you seen this from the other point of view, like from your projects? Have you done casting calls and gone out and doing a talent search and that type of deal?
From like actual casting other people to be in.
Yeah, like you said, you had some small short films and stuff you've done.
Yeah. And I think that, so my wife actually did a short film many, many moons ago. We held a casting casting session in Los Angeles. It was in a little theater, and we were looking for a female role that was between, I think, 50 and 70 was the lead role. And it was really interesting to be on the other side of the casting couch, because you get to see people's nerves. You get to see if people get really nervous. Some people are just excited. Some people pull ideas that you wouldn't even imagine. Like, oh, I would never see the character do that, but that's, bold choices and things like that.
Right.
But I think for anybody who's an actor, you should definitely cast some things, because it gives you a whole nother perspective of the other side of what they're seeing. Yeah. And it really is. They just want somebody to be good and help the story. They're not against any of the actors. Like, oh, no, you can't do it. It's like, we want you to do it.
I've had the privilege of being on that side of the production as well, both in helping out as casting and then trying to cast a short of mine as well, and being a reader. Sometimes actors can volunteer to be a reader for casting directors, which is a really great thing, just to make connections with casting directors, just to develop relationships, because it is a very relationship-based business. So however you can make a relationship is good.
So a reader, meaning, so like you're also an actor, you're there so that the other actor can bounce off you, type of thing? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, reading the other role or roles in the material that you're auditioning with.
Now that brings up a good point, because I've taken a few acting lessons now. Both of my acting coaches keep saying that it's not about you, it's about your partner and how well you interact with your partner. And if your partner is good, then that makes you good too. So how does that work in the case of you've got a reader up there? Are you just neutral, or are you trying to pull the best that you can out of your partner who's actually the one who's auditioning?
Yeah, go for it, Brian. Go for it if you want.
I mean, that's actually a big discussion amongst actors. Sometimes you will get a casting person that's reading with you, a casting director or associate, or a reader that is giving you nothing. So it can make it a little bit more challenging not to have any kind of emotion or life given to you. So I think sometimes they do ask actors to come in that will give the actor something to play off of. And I know that it is helpful for me as an actor to have somebody that's actually having that moment to moment, real life conversation with you. Just, obviously the goal is to make it a real experience, like to take the words and breathe life into it. So
so if your audition is like for, let's say it's like a high octane action film, Matt, and they're like, all right, you are the next Arnold Schwarzenegger, go in that room and we want to see you, I don't know, flex your muscles, and you got to yell, we got to get out of this building and, maybe run to the chopper, whatever, get to the chopper, that kind of thing. And that's your scene. And you go in there and you have an actor who's reading with you that is wonderful, and their energy is matching yours, and you're excited and they're excited, and you go back and forth, and it makes it feel like a real scene. Or you can go in there, you're up here with your energy, you're going, yeah, let's do all this. And then they're just flat, like, get over to the chopper. You know what I mean? And you're like, oh, I can't bounce off of that.
Would you like go over there and get in the door and fly away?
Yeah,
please?
And that's how it is sometimes. But yet you have to stay at, 100% or 110% or whatever. But,
that reminds me of a story. Okay. See, one of the reasons why I said that hopefully you guys have a lot of time, because these interviews tend to run long, is because I tend to send us on tangents. So do you guys, did you ever watch Star Trek Deep Space Nine? You ever know that show?
I never watched it all the way through, but I have seen some of them. Yeah.
Okay. Well, anyways, there's an actor in there who played a one-eyed Klingon, and his name is J.G. Hertzler. And I met him at Star Trek Las Vegas last summer. And he told me how the way he got the role was he came in and he knew he was going to be a Klingon, and he toned it down and he played it kind of straight. And they didn't like it, they were like, so then what he did right in the middle of it, he got totally pissed and he took a chair and he threw it across the room as hard as he could. And he said that he somehow tore like his toenail. It bounced off the wall and hit him in the foot or something. His toenail started bleeding and had blood all over him. And then he started redoing the whole deal. And he was all pissed because he was actually hurt. He hurt himself. But anyways, then they loved it, and then they hired him to be the Klingon warrior. And the rest is history.
I wouldn't recommend doing that in most rooms, but hey, if it works.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So it seems to me like, I mean, it strikes me like when they do a casting call and they're looking for somebody to play a certain part, it doesn't seem like they're like, okay, we want to find the actor who's the most skilled and has the most chops and who can do all these things. It doesn't seem like that's usually the case. It seems like more like they want to find somebody whose personality already brings like 75% of the character to the role. They're like, oh, well, that's the guy. He just naturally is the guy we want. Is that a fair assessment? Do you think that's true, or what are they looking for?
Yeah, I think, or if it isn't your natural personality, I think it's the idea that if you can base it in reality, maybe. So, like, yes, having the most talent, in the room would be great. But sometimes if they're just not, like you said, if they're just not quite right for the role, but like you're saying, we're talking about the idea of casting. I think that you can just kind of feel it. Like when they're in the room and somebody does something, whether it's what you think it should be or not, is you just kind of, it has a different feel. So an example is for the worldwide talent search for Space Command, Sarah Marafino, who plays Captain Essex. There she is right there.
Right there with that giant gun in her hand.
Yeah, she initially auditioned for Commander Matt Kemmer, the role that all of the captains and commanders were all going for. So it was only for a male. And Sarah, I guess, just looked at that. And she's like, well, I think I want to play that role. So I don't care if it's a man or not. I think it's going to be me. So she put her tape in, and sure enough, Mark and Elaine watched it, and they're like, she's great. She can't be Matt Kemmer because, there's a certain storyline that follows. But they said she's great enough. Let's just write another entire role for her.
Oh.
And she'll now be Captain Essex. And so she'll be another captain that's in the Space Command universe.
Okay, so that's cool. So in that case, they were so impressed with her that they actually wrote to her as an actor.
Yeah. Yeah. So like you're saying, the 75% of personality, I think just Sarah's boldness alone, plus her performance on top of that, opened their eyes to being like, oh, wow, okay, we can add to the whole universe of Space Command just with what she did in that performance. So
wow, that's amazing. Cool. Yeah, that's a neat story. Yeah, it seems like acting is, nowadays, modern acting, again, I'm mostly a newbie.
Is on TikTok.
Yeah, but it seems like what I got from my coaches is like, they're always telling me, you're trying to put on too much. You're putting on a character, and I don't believe it. Why don't you just be yourself? You got to pull more of yourself and less of this fake character that you're creating. And I'm like, well, that's boring. Part of why I want to act is so I can become a different character. And they're like, no, you can't do that. It has to be from who you are. So then I get into discussion who really am I?
Right.
Other than all these different characters that I think I am from what I learned when I was a kid. It gets pretty deep pretty fast if you go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, I was going to say, just with that realization alone, just that question of you asking yourself, like, well, who am I? Like, that alone is a good, like, leaping point for a character, because all of us are in the same boat. We're all trying to be the best person that we can. For the most part, we're trying to do good in the world, and then sometimes we falter and sometimes we don't. And it's that whole idea of like, that's human nature. So the fact that you asked that question to yourself, Matt, like, that's right there, you can pull a character out of that, because that's based in reality. Like, you're asking yourself, you could also ask yourself that same question as that character, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, that's what makes acting fun for me. The fascinating part is all the self-discovery you have, and asking all those questions and trying to find. I get that if you're gonna be convincingly act a character, it has to have some slice of you in it for it to be real, right? So you have to take some aspect of yourself and then somehow mold it with the character you're creating, right?
Yeah.
But it seems like these days, it's like most acting coaches seem to go overboard where all they want is you, and they don't want so much of a performance anymore compared to, like, say, if I watch a show from the 70s or the 60s or the 50s, it's very obvious that the style of acting is way different back then than it is now.
Dano.
Yeah. It was way more theatrical, and it was way more amped up, and everything was more exaggerated a lot more, you know, than typical actors do now. And I kind of long for that, though, because I mean, once you watch a show that's when the actors do act in that style, you get used to it, and then, you know, it's very enjoyable because everybody's so over the top with what they're delivering. You know what I mean?
I feel like a lot of it depends on what the tone of the show is, though, which is one thing that we always have to take consideration into when we're auditioning for a project, because something like The Orville has a very different tone than, say, you know, Independence Day, or, you know, something like that.
Nice.
So you really got to know if a show or something already exists. It's really important to know what that tone is, because you know, there are a lot of differences. And so
I will counter that the Orville has evolved quite a bit from season 1 to season 3. So it started out being, everybody expected it just to be kind of a silly Seth MacFarlane Family Guy in space, but it quickly evolved into a really good sci-fi show. So,
it looks great too. You know, I think they're doing a good job with it.
Yeah, but yeah, I hear what you're saying. So like, if you're doing a comedy, you know, like the Brady Bunch or Happy Days or something like that. I mean, in Happy Days you can go like, hey, like, yeah. Even though Henry Winkler isn't anything close to like that in real life. You know, but in that show, it worked great, and everybody fell in love with the Fonz. Even to this day, everybody loves the Fonz.
Yeah, and I think that I don't know that I would say that you can't play a character that's not yourself. I mean, you look at Meryl Streep, and like, she's got many different sides to who she is, because she brings something unique and different to many of the different roles that she plays.
Okay.
One of my teachers always talked about how, like, there's so many different sides of us inside of us. And it's kind of just about tapping into or shifting into those different elements of us, because it's like, you know, speaking to your wife, you probably speak different to her than you might speak to one of your parents, or a small child, or a teacher, or someone you are just interacting with as you come across them on the street that's a complete stranger, because we put on these different faces, social masks or whatever,
personas or whatever.
But it's like, it's all a part of us. It's just a different part, you know. And some part might be, oh, this is me if I grew up in Ireland and I had an Irish accent. You know, it's just this is the story of who I would be in this scenario, dictated by the writer.
Okay, that brings up a new question. So now that I've gotten to meet some actors, I always assumed that actors, especially successful actors, were just naturally extroverted people and full of personality, and they loved to be on stage and they loved interacting with people. And that's true for a lot of actors, but there are some actors that are surprisingly introverted and shy. And I'm like, how in the world can you be an actor and be an introvert?
Yeah,
but apparently it's not that unusual.
We literally had this conversation 2 nights ago, actually.
Yeah.
Okay.
Really did. Yeah, it's funny.
We're both more on the introverted side than we are on the extroverted side.
Yeah. For some reason, I feel that I think that everybody thinks that actors are very extroverted because we're on everybody's television sets. We're up on the big screen. We're doing these, you know, excessive things for these stories that people watch. So, like, again, if it's an action movie, you think anybody in that, like, wow, they're, you know, whether they're good at martial arts or not. Some people could be great at martial arts in those movies, like action movies, and some people maybe just learn that like over 3 months. You know what I mean?
And it's all camera angles.
Yeah, well, it's just telling the story. But then when you meet the person who has been a martial artist their whole life, that's their life. Like they know that. But the person who just learned it, that was just an experience of their life. And then maybe they're just like, oh, that was amazing, but I don't know if I could do that again. You know what I mean? But to the audience's eye, we see everybody as like being up in our face because they're on our TV screens and they're up on stage and they're doing their thing. So I think for me, I think that's why people think that most actors are extroverted. But I that's just my opinion on it, though.
I mean, you definitely do come across extroverted actors that are like always there. It's like a performance whether they're on camera or not, you know. Yeah. But there's like, you know, I guess we were having this conversation a couple nights ago, and I was just like, well, around my friends, like our Space Command crew, we're all a very close family of people. So I'm like yucking it up on set and like joking around. One of our other co-actors is like, oh my gosh, you're such an extrovert. I'm like, not really. It just depends on the environment that I'm in. Because you get on a set where you're kind of a day player and you don't really know everybody. You step in and you do your job and you don't do a lot of other stuff. You know, there's not necessarily a whole bunch of playing around.
Yeah, because if you jump in, you're only there for a day, and let's say it's a very long running show and everybody there has the same family dynamic that we have on Space Command, but a different show, and you're not a part of that family. You can't really go in there like going, hey, let's joke around, because then you'll come across as unprofessional as well, which is kind of a funny flip side to that. You know what I mean? So you can do that. Maybe they'll love it. You could do it, and maybe they'll be like, no, what is this? What is this actor doing? So
who is this guy? Who does he think he is? Yeah, I'm kind of learning that a little bit too. There's definitely a vibe that everybody has. There's a lot of unspoken stuff and ways you should be and how you should treat each other and just what's cool and what's not. And I haven't learned it all yet. Like, for example, here's a really good one. I totally blew it with, because speaking of the Orville, the woman who plays Dr. Finn on the Orville, her name is Penny Johnson Gerald. I ended up finding myself in the middle of this VIP event, which basically one of the actors on the Orville is a really good classical pianist, and he put on a recital in LA, and I was like, well, I want to go to that recital. So I went online and I bought tickets for like $40, and I got on a plane and went down and went to the recital. And it turns out like it was a quite intimate environment. There was like maybe 50 people there, and half the cast of the Orville was there, and a bunch of Jay Lee's friends and stuff. And I'm like, well, I just found myself in this giant VP event, you know. Next thing I'm at the bar before the show starts. I turn around, and right in front of me is Penny Johnson Gerald, like my favorite actor one of my favorite actors on the Orville. So I just turned around to her and I said, I love you and everything you represent.
Uh-oh.
And she was like, okay. And I'm sure I totally freaked her out. Because, I mean, on one hand, that's just the way I am. Like, I was only half serious, but I just let it rip, you know?
Yeah, you took a risk.
And then later on, I did come back and talk to her a little bit, but I could tell that she was just really trying to keep me at a distance because she just had no idea. Plus her husband was there too. So, but anyway, now I wouldn't approach my favorite actor quite that way again. But hopefully I'll get to see her someday and we'll get to joke about it. But like right now, I think she probably thinks, who the hell is that Matt Weiss? Dude, that guy just freaked me out.
I feel like for me, there becomes like a kind of a reading the room kind of situation. And it's like, I feel like that's just something that maybe is relatively innate in me to kind of feel what's the energy, I guess, in a room. And like, if it's a welcome one to kind of goof around and joke around versus if it's kind of serious, if there's a stress in the situation, I just best do what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah, you're really good at that though, Bryan, man. I've seen you work the room. It's good, man.
Yeah.
Just accordingly, man. Yeah.
Well, I assume you got to really read the room. I mean, because on one hand, it's fine to joke around, to keep everybody in a good space. But on the other hand, time is money, so you can't joke around the whole time. you actually want to shoot this scene at some point. So I guess being able to gauge what's appropriate for what moment is the key, I guess.
That just makes me think of, we just got done shooting some stuff for Space Command. It's like we're joking right up to rolling, and then we'd like hop into our like serious
lock it in,
right as we're going out on the set. But like that's the Space Command family. We're joking right up until like, okay, time to get serious.
Yeah. But I think with having that dynamic, though, you can tell that we're having fun. You know what I mean? Like I hope that it comes across on the screen that there's a different energy about all of us just because of that.
Yeah.
Because if you ever get on sets where, like Bryan was saying, if it's like if you're just on a show or something for one day, you don't really get to get that rapport with people, like to get to meet them, but you'll still meet some wonderful people. You know what I mean?
Right.
Everybody's there to make one nice, wonderful project and tell a story. So no matter what, you're there and somebody chose you to be a part of it. So it's always a neat experience regardless.
Yeah. Well, obviously it takes a lot of courage to do the stuff that you guys do, because, I mean, you're always just going from one gig to the next. And like when you're on set and you're working, you're getting paid relatively well. But then you're like, when that's done, then what do you do until the next thing comes along? So, and then I'm sure always in the back of your mind, you're like, I got to be the right person, talk to the right people and say the right things, and so I don't blow it for whatever other possibilities there are. Like, is that true? Is that what really goes on in your head? Or
yeah, it might be different for everybody. I don't know. What do you think, Bryan? I think
to talk to that, I think that there's kind of been an evolution in my journey as an actor, where maybe more as I started, I might be more concerned about how someone else is going to feel based on my audition or based on my behavior on set or based on whatever, all the worries that you can rabbit hole into. But it's like, I guess at this point, it's like, I just try to show up, be a good person, do the best work I can, and then let everything sort it out how it may. Let God, divine hand of God, take care of how it all sorts out, because there's a lot that's not in our control. To just worry about it and fester about it is doesn't help anything. So I think that it's like, just show up, do my best, and let it go. It's kind of where I'm at in my journey now.
Yeah, it's a good spot to be.
Yeah. All right.
Doesn't mean sometimes I don't go like, oh, I really wanted that one. I want that one.
Yeah.
And then you lose it.
Dang it. I blew it.
Matt, that's the hardest part, I think, early on, and I think it'll probably continue for the rest of our life. But it's when you get those special roles that you're like, oh man, if I could have had this, coulda, woulda, shoulda. But it's that idea, like, yeah. Bryan and I were talking about that as well. We both have had some roles that would have definitely changed some things, But it's just something that it's just part of the game. You just got to forget it and move forward. But then every now and then, 7 years down the road, you'll be like, oh yeah, what if? What if I had whatever? But I think it's just a part of it. So it's just like another muscle. You just got to.
Okay. All right. Let me throw you this too. I mean, I get the feeling too that the Space Command, no, I would say no, but it seems like the industry itself, like Hollywood, even if you're a sought after, well-paid, well-known actor, I get the feeling like the industry itself tends to treat actors really poorly. Like you're just a piece of meat, and like you're a throwaway. If we don't like it, we'll get somebody else, type of a thing. And is that do you see that as the case too, or?
Kind of. I mean, I think so. Like with Space Command, that's an example where it is people who have the power, if they wanted to be like that, but they choose not to. Right. So I think that any and every production could actually choose to, run a smooth ship the whole way through. So I think it depends on just who's involved and things like that, because all the different personalities, and like you said, when there's millions and millions and millions of dollars involved, that
changes things.
Yeah, it changes a whole bunch of things.
Well, I can see it both ways, because like I could see it from a producer's point of view. I could see why you would want to keep your actors in line. Like, suppose you get a hit show and you're the producer and the show centers around the star of the show, you know? Like Captain Kirk, for example, Star Trek. Suppose I'm Gene Roddenberry and I've got Leonard Nimoy as Spock and I've got William Shatner as Kirk. And the show's a hit. And Star Trek basically is Captain Kirk and Spock. If there's no Captain Kirk and Spock, there's no Star Trek. So now suddenly the actors realize that everything depends on them. So now they got a lot of leverage. So now they start wanting more. And so now I've got to, as the producer, I've got to figure out a way to work with these guys, yet keep them in their place so that they don't keep wanting more and more money that I can't afford, type of a thing. So I can see how it works both ways. And I guess that's the point of having contracts and maybe having agents and stuff to work all this stuff out.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, my dog's barking, so you guys might hear a little dog in the background. But yeah, I think like an example of things that can happen is like I heard about Back to the Future. You guys hear how for Marty McFly originally the whole role was for an entirely different actor who filmed for I don't know, like weeks. Was it? What's that?
I think it was like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Oh wow! And you mean instead of Michael J. Fox, it was somebody else?
There's actually some footage out there you can find that they've released some of it.
Yeah, Eric Stoltz. I think Eric Stoltz, I believe.
That was about right.
Huh.
Yeah. Who's also a talented actor, but I guess for some reason they just wanted to go a different direction. He had the role. He filmed for however many weeks, and he was Marty McFly. And then all of a sudden there was something needed to change, and it's Michael J. Fox, and the rest is history. So like there's those aspects too. So you never know what's going to happen. But what I like about how the industry is now is the streaming services allow for so many different stories from so many different minds to be out there to the world. So it's kind of, it's a whole lot, there's so many streaming services that you can watch a lot of good things, but from an acting standpoint, it's a wonderful situation to be in. I think even for producers and directors as well, because there's so many different things you can work on.
Right. Though I do know that the rate of pay for streaming shows is a lot less, isn't it?
Yeah, they're working on it. It sounds like that.
Yeah. I guess it all depends on the budget of the show, but I know there's a category within the SAG Screen Actors Guild has a special category for streaming shows now, where the minimum rates are way less than what you would get if you were on a normal TV show or a movie.
I would actually say that the rates of things like Netflix and Amazon and stuff, the minimum rates are actually the same. It's where the residuals come in is where it's significantly different, because residually you don't get paid near as much as you would if it was on television or if it was a big hit in the theaters. Oh, okay.
Yeah, they say it's because with streaming, it's about minutes watched is like the certain unit, and after X amount of units that have been watched, then that's how they branch out the residuals, I guess. But then on television, because it's actual like sets that are on, so it is still minutes watched of the show, but it's also how many people are tuning in to watch it on this given days. But since there's already built-in advertising and all of that stuff, that's why there's a lot more accessibility for residual payments and things like that.
So does your typical actor learn all this stuff, all these formulas and this kind of stuff, or do you mostly just leave it up to your agent to tell me? Just like, I don't want to know about all that, so just tell me how much money I'm getting.
We just have to learn our lines. That's it. We just learn our lines, try to one foot in front of the other. No, that's good.
I think that for me, I've just learned a lot more of it as I go, but I still feel there's a lot more that I don't know than I do know. But a lot of the things I've learned has just come up as necessity. Like, well, what does this mean? What shouldn't I be getting this, or blah, blah, whatever it is. It's like, it's happened. I know it now because I didn't know it when I wished I would have known
until it happened. Yeah.
So you live and you learn. You learn a lot more by your failures than you often do by your wins.
Yeah, you get burned a couple of times, and then you don't get burned again after that.
There was a show that I actually booked that when the email came to me, it said, "You're working this day. you're on hold for this day, you work this day, on hold this day. And it had me on for quite a while, and you're supposed to get paid for hold days. And I said to my agent, like, can we get this in a contract? And he said, if casting said this is so, then it will be so. Wish we would have got that contract, because we missed a lot of money because they said, oh no, those weren't real hold days.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to, I mean, you got to like surf the net and talk to your friends on your phones. Why should we pay you for that?
Right.
The thing about a hold day is like it's supposed to be like you're on hold for that show, so you can't take other work. So they're supposed to pay you for a hold day.
That makes sense. Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm an IT guy, so I mean that's the equivalent of being on call. If you're an IT guy on call, like, I mean, if I have to sit, even if I would have to sit in my room all weekend doing nothing, I'm still on call. I could have been doing something else.
Yeah.
So you have to pay me. Otherwise, I'll go do something else.
Yeah. Another job.
Yeah.
For sure.
Interesting. Okay. So there's, so on one hand, if you're just an actor and that's it, then your life, I guess, is constantly doing auditions, trying to find roles you want to do, and trying to hope you get the roles that you want to do. But it's all kind of hand to mouth type of thing. And you still sort of feel like you're kind of at the whims of what the universe is going to give you. Whereas if you go the other route and start to become a producer or writer or that type of a thing, or director, then it seems like you have more command over where your life is going to go. Would you say that's true?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because if you're doing your own stuff, then you're writing your own ticket in a sense. And if you're waiting for it, then you'll wait for that ticket to come, and it may or may not ever come. So yeah, if you're actually generating that, and then I think a fun thing about writing and doing your own thing is that we can put our buddies in it. We can get your friends in, and we can all make a movie. Or if you want to go beyond that, you have a good idea, take it in and pitch it. Who knows? You could have a show on TV that then you can still bring your buddies into it, and you can have actual money behind it and push forward. But yeah, I think that works either ways, though. I think if you're an actor if you're putting in the time, no matter what, I think if you stay focused and work hard and, take classes, meet people, just be active, but have a life outside of acting, I think success will come your way if you just keep going forward, because you'll meet people along the way that everybody wants to help everybody, and that's how it all kind of comes.
Yeah, so these days people seem to be more helpful. It's not that it's more like everybody helping everybody now, rather than everybody's competing with everybody.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But like in that same vein, of the recent successes and things that I've had, I wouldn't have had those if it wasn't for this other guy that you're talking to right here.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So my wife and I were in LA. That's where we met Bryan. He was on Space Command. And while we were shooting Space Command, was right when you made the move, I think, right, Bryan? Is that when you started moving?
Started shooting Forgiveness, yeah.
Oh, Forgiveness. That's right. Yeah. Yeah, Bryan had moved out to the city of Atlanta, and he was telling us, because he was probably getting a phone call from multiple people 3 to 8 times a week saying, "Hey, what's Atlanta like? What's Atlanta like? What's Atlanta like? I hear it's great. What's Atlanta like?" And we were some of those people calling him, and he's like, "Yeah, I think you should give it a shot." It just seemed so kind of out of the box, because Los Angeles and New York, that's what you always that's what is what the business is. And sure enough, yeah, we decided to take the leap. We came out here to Georgia, and it changed everything. So thank you, Bryan, as it's being recorded. Thank you.
That's cool. So are you guys working on a project together in Atlanta? You got anything happening over there?
We have worked on some shows, not at the same time.
Yeah.
On similar shows, but not at the same time. We were just talking about how we need to go open a signing booth at one of the cons, like the two of us, because we've been in so many shows together.
We're in the same shows together.
Yeah.
That'd be
But,
cool.
Yeah.
I think we've talked more about things that we're creating ourselves that we'd both be in rather than other projects that outside of Space Command that we've actually got to act together. But,
Yeah. There will be more. There will be more.
So do you think either of your guys' scripts would work having either of you guys actually acting in it?
maybe. I think
Yeah, some of them, maybe. Yeah. I feel like you definitely do, Brian. You have something you could work in, I think, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's definitely now that you asked that question, there is one of the scripts that I'm writing. I think that Ethan can be good in.
Thanks, man. Let me know where to send the tape.
Put the pressure on them. Made me
Put
say
the
it here.
audition tape. I'll send the audition over to Matt. You check it out, Matt, and if it's good enough, send it over to Brian, and we'll go from
Tell you
there.
what we
You
can
work
do.
as your agent in the
Okay, so Ethan, if you can shoot it on a green screen with halfway decent lighting,
Yeah.
I can make it look like you're wherever you need to be.
Careful what you wish for, Matt.
Yeah.
He's good at creating stuff on green screen.
Have you seen some of my stuff?
I was talking about
Brian?
Ethan, like he's made whole films just with the background of a green screen, like
Oh, okay.
him acting with himself.
Yeah, okay. So, okay, let's talk about that. So there's a whole new type of acting where like all you got is a camera and a green screen, right? And so at least the way I do it is the only way to do it is you just have to imagine everything. You just live in your imagination and convince yourself that what you're imagining is real. And then pretty soon your body will react to what you're imagining you see. So that's how I do it. I don't know if is there any other way to be able to do something like that?
Well, I feel like that sums it up, though, man. Because if you're feeling it in your body, then something's working. You know what I mean? Because if you aren't feeling it, then I think it would fall flat. So yeah. I think that's exactly how to do it, man.
And one thing, kind of going back to one of our earlier conversations, if you're actually acting with green screen in the background, but you're acting with another person, it doesn't necessarily matter what's happening out here if you two are having a really strong connection.
Yep.
Okay.
Because like we talked about, getting everything that you can from the other person and then them from you. So that's oftentimes why it's like when I'm on set, if I can really just focus on the person that I'm trying to speak to, like the camera and everything else melts away, and it can really come down to just the person that I'm speaking to. So like green screen or whatever, the relationship's the thing that's most important in this scenario. The relationship and the story that's being told between the two people.
Okay. Let me ask you this.
That's what you were saying, Matt, about the working on the other, like how you're saying that your acting teacher is telling you it's on the other person. Mm-hmm. That's what Brian's saying. So yeah, regardless if there's explosions in the background or if you're on a different planet in the green screen, regardless, that's what they're saying. You can find that humanality. Is that a word? I don't know. Humanity
in the other person.
In your other person. Yeah.
Okay. Here's another somewhat newbie question. So when you here's again, my deal is all the stuff I do is with green screens, and I don't think I've done a single thing on my channel besides interviews where I've acted where the actual person I'm bouncing off of is actually in the room with me. Like I'm always pretending they're there. So then when I did do some acting lessons where I had a partner, I was terrible at it because it was really hard for me to try and interact with my acting partner while at the same time remembering my lines, So I don't know. I mean, does that just melt away after a while once you have more experience, or how do you keep to the script yet interact with this person like another fellow human being right next to you?
One thing, I guess a quick tip that popped out for me is like oftentimes when I'm trying to remember a line, I like to go back to what was just said. Like, what did the person just say to me? Because usually what is just said is often informing what I'm saying. So if I'm really listening to the person I'm with in the actual conversation, that what they said is going to lead me to what I'm about to say anyways. So if I'm actually in the moment with that person, they say something, if I've done the work and I've connected that thought between what they say and what I'm about to say, I can really be in that moment a lot easier than if I'm just trying to say the words. If I've just memorized words rather than what lives beyond those words.
Why are you saying those words?
Okay. Yeah, maybe the thing I was thinking about this one scene I did, which was from an Arthur Miller play called Under the Bridge, I think it was, which was about this guy named Eddie who was like, he had a stepdaughter who was like 18, and he was an overprotective dad. And part of the play was that he was actually in love with his daughter, even though he didn't really know it. That was part of the play. And I ended up playing this role. And for me, it was like, this role is so foreign to me that if I'm going to be this character, I got to put on this whole thing. So I could never really convincingly act with my acting partner because I kept having to put on this role that just I couldn't really relate to. So maybe it was just, if that was a real case, maybe I just would just say, this is not the role for me. I shouldn't be doing this role. I mean, would that be more realistic?
Well, so an example that I always think is funny is, I forget what movie it is, but there's a movie where Robert De Niro, I think it's his daughter is being kidnapped, I think. And the bad guys are calling him up on the phone. So he's on the phone and they're like saying like, look, we have your daughter and we need $1 million or else, like that kind of thing. That's what's going on. And if you watch Robert De Niro, he's so locked in, just thinking so deeply about what's going on because, from the audience, we're like, whoa, he's really listening. And then somebody asked him in an interview about that scene. He goes, you know what I was doing? I was going over my grocery list that I needed to do the next day. That's all he's doing in his brain. He's just really thinking about what he has to get from the grocery store. Why is he going to use that for his dinner? Which is so silly, but we would never know that. You see that and you're like, wow, he's really thinking about something. But I thought that was the funniest thing because it's not related at all. So an example for that, Matt, that you can do. So even though, because that's pretty heavy, man, the Arthur Miller thing that you're saying, that's, I hope
it's a really tragic play.
Yeah, but it's something that if you can find something that would replace what the actual meaning of the story is, like that, the fact that it's his daughter, hopefully nobody thinks that way. You know what I mean? It's the idea that what if you care about it, just put your wife in that situation. Do you know what I mean? Like, does it make sense logically? No, but it would pull that emotion in you of like, you love your wife. And as it comes across in the play or, it'll show like, oh, wow, he really cares for his daughter, if that makes sense. So it's like a substitution if you go that route, but that could help.
Sometimes for me too, they often say you're never really supposed to judge a character. So even when you're playing like a villain in a story, you're supposed to try and find like, well, I'm going to use first person. Why am I in this story? Why am I behaving this way? There's usually a reason that someone is behaving the way they are rather than just pure evil. There is that sometimes, but oftentimes there is some sort of drive behind why that person is that way. And if you can figure out the human why this person is behaving the way they are, it kind of helps you maybe empathize your normal you outside of the story, looking at that person, why that person is the way they are, and to just try and tell that story honestly. And there is fear involved with portraying someone that is not yourself, not close to you, someone that you outside of the story would think less of or think poorly of because of the way that person is acting. So to be able to set aside the judgment on a character will help you be able to speak through that person's eyes. Like Ethan is the nicest dude you'll ever meet. How many bad guys has he played? He's played a lot of bad guys.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. But yeah, and then you also got to think, Matt, it's just fun as well. You know what I mean? Like if you're going too deep into it, I think then sometimes the performance could be great and sometimes it can suffer from that, because if you're not being nice to the people that you're working with around you, then that's a whole different thing. You know what I mean? Like, but if, yeah, in the end of the day, if you're, I'm on a show that all I do, every episode I'm in, I torture superheroes. That's all I do on Doom Patrol. I just torture superheroes. That's it.
Oh, just a second. Wait, hold on for a second. I did not know that you were in Doom Patrol. Of course, yeah. I guess I haven't been watching Doom Patrol, otherwise I would know. But I do know that's quite a well-known show.
Well, you're going to see another familiar face in there as well. That other guy that we're talking to, Mr. Bryan McClure, is also in Doom Patrol. So there you go.
Okay. Shows that we're both on, yep.
Okay, so should I say, when I put a thumbnail out and when I promote this interview, should I be saying actors from Space Command, or should I say actors from Doom Patrol?
I don't know.
One's going to catch people's eyes.
Both, because it's actually
do both.
Ethan's in quite a bit of, I don't know how many episodes total you're in of Doom Patrol. I was in one, but he was in quite a few.
Do they film it in Atlanta?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it's out here. But yeah, one of my very first episode, I just had a little bit part, but they cut that one out. So I would have had one extra episode as well. But yeah, to go back to the acting side of it though, Matt, like it's, I'm not the guy that's going to sit and torture people, but when you're on a set and you're hanging out and it's all for fun, for telling a story, and you get to geek out about DC Comics superheroes, then it makes for a good day.
You get to be the bad guy. So you're able, okay, so let's go to that other business about method acting. So obviously, I mean, there was this idea that you had to actually, if you believed in method acting, you did your best to actually become that character, right? And then, but other people would say, no, you should not do that if you want to maintain your sanity and maintain your identity as a real human being. So
I think it's whatever works for you, because I feel like it can be, everybody operates different. So I think like Brian's process is different from my process, is different from your process, Matt. You know what I mean? But I think, regardless what our process is, we'll have to find a common ground if we're all in the same scene together anyways. Mm-hmm. So if somebody wants to, whatever the role is, if somebody's has become that character and has been living that way for 2 years just for this one scene, whatever.
Daniel Day-Lewis?
Yeah, like a Daniel Day-Lewis approach. Then if that works, then go for it.
Well, obviously in your case, you wouldn't want to do that because you wouldn't want to become this evil,
no, I'd be in jail.
Character.
I would be in jail.
Right.
Matt.
So the way you do it is you're able to, how quickly can you flip it on and off?
Well, it's just in the words. It's the writing. So like the writing calls for what kind of person that you are. So I think it's like finding it in what's in the script and then just kind of developing from that is kind of the approach that I go, if that makes sense.
Okay.
But yeah, like turning it on and off is, I think it's just a muscle that you just through different experience and stuff. Yeah.
Like I know, like part of what I was doing for a while is I was working on, like my current acting coach started out as my accent coach. And so for a while he was teaching me how to talk like from Jersey, like, hey, you, like what? Are you talking to me? Are you looking at me? Look at me when I'm talking to you, Ethan. Hey, pay attention, will you?
Okay.
So what I realized is that for me to do that accent, I have to create a character who's got that same obnoxious quality, right? And then, so for a while, I would just pretend like I was this guy all day long. And pretty soon my wife is like, can you please bring Matt back? I did not marry this obnoxious whoever you are. I married Matt. So it was a bit of a problem.
Yeah. I can see how that can stir some things up.
Yeah. So
I think Daniel Day-Lewis did thank his wife in one of his acceptance speeches for her willingness to live with so many different men, because he has embodied so many different people in the home.
Yeah.
What a wonderful actor, though. Man, oh man. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think part of it is, I mean, if you're an extrovert, for example, and you meet a lot of people and you interact with a lot of people, you can kind of call all those different people up. Like it's in your memory, it's in your life experience, and you can sort of call that character up and pretend you're them, and it can kind of work.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But again, I mean, you have to, again, it's like, well, what's the difference between that and being schizophrenic? Like, there's a fine line.
A very, very fine line.
What makes you think we aren't?
But yeah, again, I think it just goes back to the process. I think it's whatever works for you. So, Matt, if you were to go out right now and take 5 different acting classes from 5 different techniques, you'll learn something that from each of them, hopefully, and maybe some you won't. But yeah, I think it's the idea of finding from whatever approach works for you, and then leave the rest to whoever feels that that's good for them. But I think it's good to branch out in that sense also. Just try to soak up as much as possible, and then some things you can take, some things you can leave, and then you can start pulling from that.
Okay.
Until then, you'll just be stuck with the New Jersey accent until your wife says, "Okay, that's."
Well, yeah, there's the Jersey one, and then there's also like Cowboy Matt. Hey, I got my guitar right over there. Would you like to hear me play a song?
You said guitar?
Yeah, I got my guitar.
Guitar right over there.
Yeah, it's got a little twang to it. Got a little whammy bar on it too. Look at the twang-a-lang. Can you see that? Wow. You want to hear it?
That you're really
So anyway, who knows what it is? It's Cowboy Matt. One version of Cowboy Matt. Anyways. So, but so I like to just create these completely different characters, right? And they're cardboard, so they're obviously not serious characters. They're comic characters. So, and because of that, they can be exaggerated and they can be comical and comic book, you know? So it works. You know, but if it had to be an actual dramatic character that you really believe, then it's a totally different story, right?
I just thought of this, Matt, in the idea of like mimicking somebody, right? And so you're saying right now your characters that you're mimicking are kind of comedic or whatever, and you'd have trouble maybe mimicking that that father that you mentioned in the one play if that was like a real person. But I just started thinking about how, like, in any art discipline, when you're first starting out, it's actually a good idea to start like mimicking like different kinds of masters at the craft. Like Ethan talked about studying from different teachers, but like mimicking different kinds of teachers. And then eventually you start to develop your own technique out of having mimicked all these different things. Am I making sense with what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Sounds like you're kind of in the beginning stages of your acting training. So like if you continue to do it and mimic some of the stuff that's already out there, you would continue to evolve, and maybe it wouldn't be this, I guess, kind of caricature of a Southern person or something, but like it would get inside you, and then you would be able to live from that space.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense where I was going with that, but that.
No, it does. It totally makes sense. Well, that's how I learned how to be a musician. I mean, my main musical instrument is violin, and so I took from Suzuki method, and the whole way you learn music is as a kid, you hear other kids playing, and you just learn by imitation, and then it eventually, in the same way that you learn your original language, you just imitate what everybody else is doing. And then at some point it becomes your own, right? It stops being imitation, and at some point you begin to identify it and start to create from yourself. You know, I think it's a similar phenomenon. So how long have you guys been in the acting world? Like,
I started in 2007.
Okay.
That's roughly when I started.
15 years. So you're a bit of a late bloomer then, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And how about Bryan?
Yeah, similarly, I didn't grow up acting. I didn't even do plays or anything in high school.
Okay.
I moved to LA in 2009, but the first thing I ever acted in was in 2005. But I kind of classify 2008, 2009 as when I started pursuing it professionally.
So you both just sort of accidentally fell into it?
For me.
Yeah, yours legitimately kind of wasn't it?
Yeah, I was looking for a summer job.
Here we are 15 years later.
That's the same story that Johnny Depp told. Have you heard his story?
No.
Well, he moved to LA because he was in a band. He was playing guitar in a band, and they decided they wanted to move the band to LA because they could get more gigs. And then while he was there, he was like living out of his van or out of his car, and working some crappy job, and didn't have the money to pay rent. And he had this friend that was an actor, this guy named Nick. And, his friend Nick's like, hey, you ought to try acting. You'd be probably pretty good at it. It pays pretty good. I mean, and then Johnny Depp was like, oh, I don't know. I mean, I don't think I could do that. And then he goes, come on, just try it. I've got an agent. I'll talk to my agent and see what happens. So it's like, oh, okay. Well, anyways. So that's when he landed 21 Jump Street.
Oh, jeez.
And then he was like, oh, wow, I got paid like $2,000 for 1 week worth of acting. Like, this pays really good. I mean, I'm going to keep doing this because it pays good. So then that way I can, support my band, and then my band can take off, and this is a great way to make money. So he would say, I don't 100% believe this, but this is his story is his whole reason he stayed with 21 Jump Street. He said he didn't like it. He didn't like being famous because he became a teenage heartthrob, and he couldn't deal with the fact that he was, and he never thought of himself as being that. But the pay was good, and he figured, he'd last a year or two, and that'd be it. He'd have some money, and he'd go play in his band after that. That's the story he tells now, right? And then he, of course, he realized, hey, maybe I am pretty good at acting after all. Maybe I should go take some lessons and do this a bit more and whatever. And of course, now he's like, he's
a legend.
One of the number one actors on the whole planet. Anyway, so he fell into it apparently the same way, just kind of by accident,
I was going to say, too, he's one of those examples of people that plays very far outside of how he normally carries himself. I would bet you he's probably an introvert.
I believe he is. So, yeah. In fact, I would say that's correct. Because he doesn't seem to, he's good with fans now because he's so famous, but I think it takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of energy for him to interact with fans and be out in public. So
I can say too, like I skew more on the introverted side, but I love being around people. I just need my me time to recharge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because I consider myself very much an extrovert, but earlier on in my life, I was very introverted too. And everybody would say I was this quiet guy, but somehow something shifted.
What do you think it was that shifted, Matt? What do you think caused that shift?
Well, when I look back, I realized even in high school, I kind of flipped back and forth. I could be very introverted, but then there were other times when I could be very extroverted. And when I really just felt free enough to be that way. So I think really I just kind of grew past things that were holding me back. And of course, I also did lots of therapy. Lots of meditation over the years, and worked through a lot of childhood issues with my family and especially my dad. And so I would say now basically just the things that were holding me back kind of evaporated. So now what was beneath that is actually much more open, extroverted person that thought they were an introvert.
That's
but
wonderful.
I really wasn't an introvert ever, really.
Yeah. Bryan and I were talking a little bit about it the other day too, about how I think when I was little, I liked making people laugh. And okay. Bryan, you were saying the same thing as well, but I think I've always kind of been introverted, but I think throwing myself out there to try to kind of break through that, I guess, is what I've always kind of done. So when I guess my first official acting gig would be in, it would be 8th grade.
Okay.
When the school, my middle school there had, they had built a new school, and in every classroom was this new thing called a television. Was in each of those classrooms.
Well, hold on. You are way too young to have a television be a new thing.
Oh no, it was new. Well, I'm from a very small town, so it wasn't so of the fact that it was the television itself was not brand new, but for my town, it was brand new. But yeah,
Okay.
the whole thing was is that whoever was the president of the middle school in eighth grade would get to do the morning news for that school. So I'm like, whoa, wait. So you're saying if I run for school president, I could be on the morning news every morning?
Dun,
So I
dun, dun,
ran for
dun, dun,
president.
dun, 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 dun.
Ooh, yeah. But yeah, so I ran for president and got voted in as president. So every morning I would just do my best Johnny Carson kind of stuff to see if people could laugh and all that stuff. But I
That's
always knew. Was it?
That's interesting. I didn't know that about you because I was actually, even though I didn't classify it as acting, I was in like our news program in high school. And at the end of the news program, they had this segment from the Comedy Boys. So we would do little sketches on there at the end of it. But like, it was just like the funnest class. I didn't even really think about it as acting.
You were just having fun, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have to go to the libraries where like the live feed was. So it was just me sitting behind a desk with like the lunch calendar and the events calendar, and the librarian was the one running the camera. So there's nobody else there. So I have no idea if anybody in all these classrooms are laughing or if they're upset or what's going on, but I would just do these stupid bits. And I knew that if I could get the librarian laughing, then it might be working somehow. But then I go back to class because, yeah, just like you're saying, Brian, I didn't see it as anything. I was just in there having fun. And you almost forget that, oh, this is being broadcast to the entire school. But there's things like I dressed up as one of the teachers one time and was just kind of making like pretending to be the teacher, and I actually got in trouble. So it was just kind of fun. Like, oh yeah, I got to be careful with what I'm doing because it's not just me in here goofing off. But yeah.
Okay, you just reminded me. Did you see the movie Good Morning Vietnam with Robin Williams?
Yeah.
That just came to mind.
Yeah, that's kind of what it felt like. He's just in there just yelling out to the troops, you know what I mean? So my troops are my fellow classmates.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's really fun. That's a neat story. Wow. So, So how do you carry yourself like when you're not acting and when you're not a professional actor? How do you live with yourself? I mean, are you the same guy, or what?
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, I don't know.
It's not the same guy as he is in Doom Patrol. He's not that same person.
Yeah, I'm not that guy. Yeah, I hope nobody's that guy. Yeah, I would say yeah. I mean, like daily life, it's just, I don't know, kind of hanging out, walking the dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you and where you guys live, do you have to deal with people recognizing you as the character that you're on the show, or are you pretty much just a normal person walking around at the grocery store?
No, I feel like I'm just a normal person. I don't know, Brian, do you get recognized?
This is the way I've been getting around the past couple of years. I've been wearing a mask.
Oh, yeah, lucky dog.
No, nobody recognizes me. But I did when I used to live in Hollywood. There's all these tour buses that drive around, and I always used to just think it was funny to like just duck and like hide my head when they drive by as if I was this famous person.
Yes, well, here's a funny thing related to Space Command. There was the what was it? The LA Comic Con. So it was LA Comic Con. It was in Anaheim at the time, and I asked Mark Zickery. I said, "Hey, can I borrow the Jack Kemmer the Space Command suit to show up fully suited up to this convention?" He's like, "Yeah, sure, I guess if you want to." So I went with my older brother and his wife, and I showed up to Comic Con. We're strolling with the others, and of course nobody knows who I am really because I'm just dressed in this suit that nobody's seen yet. So I don't think anything was released or anything yet. I was just some guy dressed in this cool space suit. But I was walking into the convention, and there was a lady that was there walking alongside us, and she goes, "Who are you?" I said, "What do you mean?" Oh, no, she goes, "Who are you supposed to be?" I said, "What do you mean?" "I'm Captain Jack Kemmer of Space Command." She just looks me dead in my eyes and goes, "Well, who the hell is that?" So I'm like, all right, well, there's that. But then as I she went away. We kept walking. As soon as I went through the doors, I walked in, and the guy looked at me. He goes, "Whoa, Space Command!" I was like, "What?" It's just a funny like flip side of the exact coin that happened 3 minutes earlier. That somebody, had no idea who I was, but then saw the uniforms. Yeah, Space Command. Yeah. We saw your Kickstarter. I thought, oh wow. No, it was just really funny because I was doing it more as a joke because nobody knew who Jack Kemmer was or anything. But sure enough, some didn't, and some did.
That's cool. So, are you guys able to give us since we're talking about Space Command again, are you guys able to tell us any little morsels about the shoot that you just did? Is it all secret, or is there tiny little bits that you could hint at?
No, well, I'll tell you one thing, that they have some wonderful set designers that are working. I mean, that blew my mind. It was so a lot of like for Space Command Redemption, all the Paladin is all practical. Like it's the whole bridge of the ship and everything's practical. And
Right.
a lot of the other stuff is a lot of green screen that we were talking about earlier. So all the other like
Right.
alien ship stuff is all mostly green screen. But for this is for Space Command Forgiveness. And this is for the story that takes place like 2.5 years after Redemption. And
Okay.
yeah, and the bulk of it has been all practical. Like all of our surroundings have been, like there's different scenarios that we're in, but it's all practical, which makes such a big difference because you're actually in the element of the scene. So
you have something to interact with. Yeah.
I believe Mark talked about it on his YouTube channel because he shares some stuff on his YouTube channel that what we filmed recently was on an alien ship. So it looks very foreign, which has been really cool.
And I think there's
really exciting.
like a 9-foot tall alien or something like that. I know he's been talking about the alien for quite a while.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah.
One thing that's cool being on set is it's not a very big space, but you would never know the way they shift the walls around and just make the small space look like an entirely different setup. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of stories like that about different sets like that. And then, of course, you can augment it with green screens, too.
Yeah.
So is Sarah in this also?
Well, I was going to say, Matt, the next time that we shoot, man, you should definitely try to come down again. I think you'd get a kick out of the sets and stuff, man.
Yeah, I want to. I asked Mark to let me know. I mean, it was a pretty good trick that I did even to come down for that red carpet. Like, I flew in that day, right? And then I went out to lunch with you guys.
Yeah, that was right when you landed, right?
Yeah, I mean, Mark just off the cuff invited me, and I'm like, okay. So then next thing I know, I'm eating lunch with you guys. And that made the trip worth it, to tell you the truth. And then of course we got to get to know each other a little bit. Now we get to do this interview, so that all was great. And then the red carpet was fun. But what's funny is Jacob Charlot.
Yeah.
He was on the show. I met him at the red carpet, and I just interviewed him yesterday. He's going to be on my...
good.
He's going through it, and he's approving it now, so it'll probably be published tomorrow. Really cool guy. I don't know how well you know him or not.
Yeah, we worked together on Redemption, man. He's a great guy.
We hardly talked anything about acting or anything at all. We spent the whole time talking mostly about spirituality and his beliefs and everything he's gone through with his medical condition and everything. Yeah. We spent like 2 hours talking about that stuff. Really deep. But I mean, so he was there at the red carpet, and he had on this really cool blue felt
shiny. Yeah. It's nice.
And I didn't even know if he was an actor or not. I didn't recognize him as being on the cast, but I just got drawn to that jacket. So I came up to him and I started feeling the jacket. I'm like, wow, this feels great. And then I just started talking to him. And then he, like within a minute, he already launched into basically his whole life story. Because he said he was in the military and I was in the Air Force. So suddenly we had something to talk about. Anyways, so really quick, we were already becoming good friends right there, and then we just kind of continued it on our Zoom call. But so, I mean, so then what happened? I had to be in Oregon the next day for a friend's wedding, so I had to fly out the next day. And I was supposed to stay at a friend's house, but I couldn't because she ended up having COVID.
Oh man!
So I was gonna try to get a hotel room or see if somebody would. I was gonna try to get somebody to put me up on their couch, And then when I was at the event and everything, I'm like, nobody's gonna let me sleep on their couch. So I finally just said, screw it, I'll just sleep at the airport. So I slept, with quotes, I slept at LA airport
with one eye open, looking around.
Yeah, but get this. At like 2 a.m, I don't know if you've ever done that, but it's such a surreal experience. You're sitting there with all these strangers. Everybody's trying to sleep. Everybody's half awake, and it's just like this bizarre half dream happening, And some alarm goes off, and it keeps going. And the guy next to me is like, "Can somebody please turn off that alarm?" And then the next thing I know, he starts telling me about how his girlfriend just broke up with him, and that he loved her and he wanted to marry her, and now his whole life is it's turned upside down. He doesn't know what to do, and he just starts launching into this. It's 2 a.m, right? And I'm thinking to myself, "Oh my God, I just want to sleep. I don't want to get into this." But I knew that the guy needed somebody to talk to, so I responded to him. We ended up talking for like 2 hours. Perfect strangers, just,
Well, it's cool. It's just the people you meet, man.
Yeah.
It's just fun that, along the journey, man.
Yeah.
Did you break out your podcast stuff at the time?
What was that?
Did you break out your podcast stuff to record it at the time?
Yeah,
I
just
didn't
started
record
rolling
it.
camera. Roll camera.
No, I didn't roll camera on that one. But yeah. So I like this. So this whole deal, I mean, I kind of dig. Some people also say, like, nowadays you got to go out and network. You got to do social networking. If you want to be an actor, if you want to be in showbiz, you just got to do it. You got to make all these contacts. And some people, they just hate doing it because they have to do it. So for them, it's like pulling teeth. And then other people like me, I actually get a kick out of it. I really like meeting people, and it's just fascinating to get to know people. And then, so that's, and then it's kind of a 2-for-1. You get to meet new people, plus you make contacts, and that something will happen from that connection at some point. If you're putting out good energy and you're helping people with their deal, at some point somebody's going to help you out too, and it all just kind of works out. So I dig that kind of stuff, actually.
Yeah,
so,
I get a kick out of it, man.
Okay, so you're not really an introvert then.
Well, so something that I think is funny, I grew up in Wyoming, so there's not many people as a population that live in Wyoming.
Okay.
But it's always funny if you're just kind of walking down the street and somebody's like, "Oh, where are you from?" From Wyoming. Like, "Oh, I'm from Wyoming." I'd say 8 to 9, 10 times out of 10, we can say like, "Well, this person, I know this person," and we can finally find somebody that we actually know together, just because of how small the state is. So I think like finding those kind of connections in the world, I think, is always kind of funny. Not just strictly based on Wyoming, but that's cool. But just like that, like, you never would have sat and talked to that guy if you didn't, if that opportunity that you had to stay in the airport, you never would have talked to that guy. But now you know a lot about that guy's story. You probably helped him out a whole bunch, man. So I think I like that aspect of going out and meeting people. So like the most extroverted, I guess, scenario that I would be in, I would say would be Comic-Con, probably.
Okay.
Because there's so many people, just hundreds of thousands of people just all around. But it's that idea of, it's so much energy going in all different directions. But I think it's the really neat thing about it is that everybody is there because they're just there to have a good time and, see some cool stuff that's coming out, find some new, like things that are only going to be premiering there, like not just like TV shows and things like that, but toys that are coming out and comic books and all this stuff. And everybody's just there to have a good time. And that amount of energy is always exciting. I think like after Comic-Con, I definitely feel it. I'm definitely like, oh man, that was a whole bunch. You know, I got to take a time out. But just meeting people, like when we're doing the signings and things like that, it's neat to see that people are just excited to be there all together. So I like that aspect.
I think sometimes people think that if you're introverted, that means that you're shy. But it really, from my understanding of it, introversion means you get your energy from time aside by yourself, as opposed to extroverts who get their energy from being around people.
Oh,
Because
okay.
some people use the phrase, I'm an extroverted introvert. And if that's a real thing, I can relate to that because I am an introvert. I need my time to myself to think and process and, have all the thoughts that my mind requires to replenish. But I love being around people, and I can do it and be around for a while. But I feel like I do need to come back and withdraw at times to have that recharge. And I think in our conversation we had a couple of days ago, I said, I like to be able to choose when I put myself in a situation with a lot of people, as opposed to just living in New York. I feel like would be tough for me, as packed and crowded as it is all the time, and not really have that space to like think and process in a quiet space, as opposed to because I like visiting New York, but I don't know I'd like to live in New York City.
Okay, I think I know what you're talking about. Okay, yeah, you know what? Maybe I am an extroverted introvert too, because from that definition, because I do have a strong sense of who I am, a strong sense of my own well-being. Like, of course, I've done lots of meditation and stuff like that, and so I can just kind of find a space that's like my core sense of self that is kind of a wellspring of energy, let's say, or you could say a fountain of life. So like when I'm meeting people, I'm not gathering energy. Well, I do. It's an interaction. Like I feel like I'm putting out a lot of positive energy. I'm putting out a lot of energy when I'm meeting people. And there's an interaction, but it's not like I'm sucking it all from them and then I have to get energy from other people. It's more like
more of a sharing.
This sharing, yeah. So, like I think I could be just as happy if I were alone, like up in a mountaintop all by myself. And I do spend a lot of time alone during the day. I can be content that way, but I'm also similarly just as happy interacting with lots of people because, I mean, people fascinate me. Mm-hmm. Actually, anything in creation fascinates me. I mean, like if I go out and look at the ants in my yard, they're fascinating. So I don't know what you call that.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
Yeah, when Athena, my wife, and I moved out here to Atlanta, something that we'd kind of gotten away from. Oh, Ollie found something. Oh, something really cool.
He heard me bark.
Sorry, guys. I'll be back. Talk amongst yourselves. I'll be right back.
All right. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to what you're saying. It sounds like a similar process as me. Like I'm also very curious about lots of different things. So any individual story too, curious about. And one thing that maybe you connect with this, I find that I do better in smaller, more intimate groups of people, but as the group size gets larger, that's where I feel like I almost start to get smaller.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's easier to interact one-on-one. Yeah, I know what you're saying. Well, okay, let's go right to the red carpet. So, I mean, that event could have been, on one hand, it could be very daunting just being there, not, at least for me, because nobody knows who I am. They're like, who the hell are you? The only thing I had going for me is I had my Space Command t-shirt on, which apparently is kind of rare. But so what my solution is just to go approach people one-on-one and basically make friends with them right on the spot.
Sure.
And that worked for me.
Yeah.
I've
definitely gone to certain events by myself, and I found there's both an advantage and disadvantage. The advantage is you make a lot of new friends. Like if you go with some friends, I myself at least tend to talk to the people that I came with. I don't make a lot of new friends, which but there is often that anxiety about is this going to be weird? Am I going to have some awkward situation? That does exist if I go to something by myself sometimes.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah,
I
funny thing, surprisingly. What was that?
Well, I said I tend to mumble a lot, so I'll find myself in new settings when I'm meeting people that I start mumbling. And I can tell they don't understand what I'm saying. I'm like, oh, I'm doing it again. So then I just kind of like go, ooh.
I like how
Hit those
on
words
the
out.
line where you said I mumble a lot. He's like, what is it?
I kind of mumble sometimes, Yeah, but I try not to.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, so it's so funny. Well, so Bryan, I don't know, your friend that was with you, I can't remember what her name was.
Jessica?
Yeah, I guess it was Jessica. The one who I thought, I said that she was your fiance.
Oh, ha. Yeah, she's my friend. She's a writing partner of mine.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Well, even me and her kind of hit it off because somehow she knew that my channel was called Pranakasha Productions. So she goes, oh, Pranakasha, that's like Sanskrit or something like that. And then, of course, then that was the end because then I'm like, well, how do you know that? Well, I do yoga. Oh, well, then I know all about that. So immediately we launched into a pretty deep conversation all about that stuff,
Great.
So
yeah, she's awesome.
Yeah, it's just fun. That's another reason why I like doing this show. It's just fun just to talk to people, and even I have different types of guests, a lot, they're either actors and musicians or some kind of creative people. And some people are quite well known. Other people aren't really that well known, but everybody's like, once you get them talking, everybody's fascinating. Like my philosophy pretty much is like that anybody that you talk to is going to have a really interesting story to tell if you just give them the space to tell it,
Mm-hmm.
And so, we're all fellow human beings.
Yeah. This is wonderful, though, man. I'm glad that you're doing it, man. It's cool to have a space to sit and chat.
Yeah, it's great. Well, I suppose we should wrap it up. Otherwise, we'll just keep going on for hours and hours. But do you guys have anything that you want to put out there? Anything? Of course, Space Command's happening. Any other projects you want to promote or let us know about?
How you want to go for it, Bryan?
Sure. I mean, I'll speak about. I got a film right now that I was the lead in on HBO Max called In Other Words. It's a romantic comedy.
Oh, cool.
A lot of fun. Chris Katana's in it. So it was a blast to do. So
it's great, Matt. You should watch that one, Matt. You should watch that one. It's great, man.
We'll put a link to. Is there I'll put a link to the IMDb page or something like that down there, or some way to get to it.
Sure. Yeah, I assume that the IMDb would have links to get there, but HBO Max or Amazon Prime are two easy ways to go to.
Amazon Prime. Okay. All right. And you said you were the lead actor in it, in a romantic comedy.
Yeah.
So.
It's funny, man. It's good.
Thanks.
Okay, I'll look forward to that.
You catch
good.
The Walking Dead too. Last season of The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Ethan's in The Walking Dead.
Oh yeah. The Walking Dead, and I got there's a show coming up on Netflix on August 19th called Echoes. I have a couple episodes in that where I have a bushy beard, so I'm trying to be incognito.
Okay.
And then I was telling Bryan I made a little short film that I play 9 different characters or something, but I got it into a screening out here locally in Atlanta. So
cool.
On the 17th, man. So it'd be kind of funny to see something, just like you're saying, Matt. It's just putting something together and making myself laugh, make my wife laugh, and then hopefully make some other people laugh too with it. But
that's neat. Do you have that? Is that also on YouTube somewhere, or
No, not yet, because I threw it into some festivals, so I'm waiting to see if anything catches. But I don't know. I'm pretty sure this might be the only one that's going to land. But yeah, it will be soon. Yeah.
Do you have a YouTube channel or anything like that?
I have a silly YouTube channel where I do tutorials, where I have a mustache and I put a little character on and do that kind of thing. But it's just my name, Ethan McDowell, and
I can put a link to that down there too.
Sure, man.
Yeah.
Sure.
And then if you if you ever want to put if you wanted to put any of your stuff on Pranakasha Productions, all I'd have to do is like a little intro for it and then put it up there, and then that's
cool.
a place.
Well, thank you, man.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that. I mean, right now the channel is mildly successful in that I think we have almost 14,000 subscribers.
That's great, man.
It's impressive.
My channel has 200.
Yeah.
Just like 200 maybe.
I remember when I had 50.
There you go.
And when I got to 100, what it was like, and I remember what it was like when I got to 1,000. And then when I got to the point where I could be monetized, I mean, everybody goes through it. So, and then everybody has their different ways of getting there, but it's actually, yeah. So again, I'm all about like helping out everybody I can, making friends,
Yeah,
have fun.
Very kind of you.
Okay.
Well, it was a pleasure meeting you, man.
You too. And just send me links, any kind of links that you want me to put in the description, like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever stuff you use to promote yourself. We'll put it all down there. And then I'll probably just grab your bios from IMDb or something like that. If you have a bio that you want me to put in, just send it to me. I'll put it all down there. I got like 5,000 characters with the stuff I can put in the description.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. We'll fill it up, and we'll fill it up for you.
All right. Well, it's just great. I'm so happy you both got to be on the channel.
Yeah, me too.
Get to talk for a bit, and maybe someday I'll go to Atlanta. See you guys in person.
Yeah,
again.
man. Come on out. Come on out.
All right. Very cool. All right. Take care. Now, I always do this live long and prosper thing for all the Star Trekkies. Do you guys know what this is? All right. There we go. There's one. There's two. Live long and prosper, my friends.
Live long and prosper.
Till we meet next time.
Yeah. All right, fellas.
Fantastic creations emerging spontaneously from the space of life. For the benefit of all beings everywhere.
We got it.